Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I guess I'm hosting the Patriot Alliance tonight because our host John Jeffers is absent, and it looks like it's just a few of us on the call tonight. It looks like Jeff is on the call with us, and let's go around the table. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Ha ha! That was good. Who are you? Introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Jeff Reynolds. I'm in Portland, Oregon, and I'm desperately trying to escape.
There you go.
Yeah. I also have a book out if you want to hear about me self-promoting. It's called Behind the Curtain, Inside the Network of Progressive Billionaires and Their Campaign to Undermine Democracy.
Right on, buddy. And then Justin?
Yeah, Justin Miles is my pen name, but Austin is my real name. And I'm up here in Wisconsin, expat from California. I escaped, the blue line.
Well, my name is Donald Lowery, a.k.a. Big D. I am the host of the Conservative Underground podcast, as well as co-host of the Two Crazy Guys podcast, and also a panel member here on the Patriot Alliance, and it's good to have you all aboard. So, did we see what happened in the news last week?
Do you mean Switzerland banning all their guns, pretty much?
No, I mean the first time in history the Speaker of the House and the minority speaker got kicked out of the White House.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. But honestly,
I didn't realize that was the first time.
Well, I mean the White House. We're talking about the White House.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing to me that, look, I was telling Mark on the Two Crazy Guys podcast that Donald Trump's got a heck of a lot more patience than I do, because if it would have been me, man, I would have busted that whole ring wide open a long time ago.
Didn't also Trump declassify a lot of files?
Yeah, he did.
Recently?
Basically what's going on is Attorney General William Barr wants to, and he's already said this, he wants to do an investigation as to who started the genesis of the Russian collusion thing and the conduct, meaning was it legally done or not? And in order to do that, he had to have all that documentation declassified, which is what Donald Trump did. Stand by for a ram, ladies and gentlemen. It got quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. Aren't we about to invade Iran and Venezuela at the same time?
Well, I don't know if we're about to invade anybody, but I'll say this much. We've got a couple of ships sitting over there, and if them people get a little trigger fingered, I'll tell you what, those two ships will get rid of those ships will probably get rid of every part of the land that's over there as it is.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm actually very scared right now in Venezuela.
yeah.
There is 2 Red Cross ships,
Yeah.
and a lot of people are saying that the government, quote unquote, the government is going to fire on those ships. And under international law, since they are non-government hospital staff,
Right.
they can't be attacked by a military.
Right.
A lot of people are saying there's going to be some kind of false flag event going on down there.
What would the rationale be for firing on them?
Because it's showing that the government is, attacking random people. They've been showing that already, but running over people with tanks. But it's going to attack foreigners.
My question is, what could the government possibly have in their interest to fire upon Red Cross ships?
Well, why would Cuba want to attack Florida during the 90s and start, a war with us too? I mean, like the CIA tried to get us to go to war with the Cubans. I'm pretty sure, it's going to be something like that.
Well, remember, communists don't really give a shit who they kill.
True.
And they don't really need a reason either.
No.
Yeah.
And they probably want to steal all the ship stuff.
Well,
That's probably what it is. Nationalization, right?
That's where I think exactly. I think you just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, because a lot of people were talking about, that there's actually where the boats are at. They're near a Venezuelan naval base. So a lot of people are kind of like very iffy about there being some kind of attack. And if that happens, we're going to be probably brought into the war.
Well, here's the thing, and Iran. Let's switch back over to Iran for a
Sure.
minute. Iran, I think they're making a big mistake, and I mean, one aircraft carrier has enough firepower on it to wipe out their entire military.
Yeah, which is, it doesn't make sense that they would be getting aggressive. They would think they would not want to piss us off, right?
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, all right, so look, everybody
Unless they're
says,
trying to draw Russia into it.
well, that's the thing. Everybody says, well, Russia will jump in and then you'll have World War III and all this other shit. Let me tell you something. Nobody's afraid of Russia and all their worn out, starving army tanks. All of Russia's equipment is antiquated, as is, most of the military is over there. The United States military is the strongest military power in the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're worried. To use it.
Well,
I don't think we're worried about Russia. I don't think I'll be honest with you, man. We'd take Russia out quick.
I'm more worried about China, honestly. China's more a threat.
China poses more of a threat than Russia does.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
They have a more advanced nuclear arsenal. They have a better advanced military that's actually morally supported by, the country. They're decently armed with modern weapons, excluding their militia forces, which have subpar weapons like the SKS and AK-47. But if you look, they actually have some of the, besides U.S. SF troops, they actually have some of the best trained military forces in the world.
Well, but remember, everything that comes out of China is junk.
Yep. Yeah. Well, for civilian market, they have some really good military hardware, and they also have one of the strongest internet hacking groups in the world too.
Yeah, definitely. China poses more of a threat than Russia does, but don't underestimate the power of the red, white, and blue, my friend.
No. I'm not. But you know what they say, and never underestimate your enemies.
That's right. No, that's a true statement.
Yeah. We're like, our biggest issue as a country is that we're spread too thin, like the Roman Empire was back in the day.
Right.
I'm one of those people where I want to slowly bring back all our troops, and I want to demilitarize ourselves a little bit so that we're not making enemies everywhere.
Right.
But that's not going to happen because people in charge like money.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, and I'm over here, and all I know about the Chinese military is that their aircraft carriers look really cool.
Oh, yeah, they're actually going more of a defensive doctrine. They actually got some really nice anti-sub and anti-carrier missile systems. Are really nice. I watched a few articles. I read a couple articles about them, and they're predicted, because they can shoot 8 missiles at once. A battle group could probably only shoot 5 of the 8. So it's one missile could destroy one carrier if it's lucky.
If it's lucky.
Yeah.
Well, all I know is I sure in the hell wouldn't want to be staring down the barrel of a big old gun like that.
No. I don't want us again. I don't want us to get in any wars. I want us to pull out. I want us to have more of a defensive doctrine instead of being aggressive. I actually want defense to mean defense.
All right. So here's Mark and I think we've run this with John too. What I would like to see happen is, honestly, I'd like to see us militarize our own border. In other words, make it military property. And then that way you could have war maneuvers and practice missions all you wanted there on the border, and heaven help anybody that got in the way. Now, see, my theory is, and this is just me, I would bring all our troops home, put them on the border, and tell them to shoot and kill anything that moves.
Part of the problem with that, though, is you got private property down there, right up to the border, so you'd have to compensate landowners for that.
Yeah, some places, but I'm sure that something could be worked out. I agree that could be a problem, but I'm sure that something could be definitely worked out.
Yeah, maybe even work out right of ways with some of the ranch owners and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but something this obviously something needs to be done. Even who was it? Was it CNN that came out and had a report, or NBC? Some major news outlets had a report saying that it was the biggest crisis they'd ever seen on the border. So.
Well, yeah. See, that's the thing, and they're trying to see. I live here on the border. Mark and I live here. We're fortunate that we have a good constitutional sheriff that takes care of business here. Not everybody is that fortunate. The border is a mess. Maybe not right here where we're at, but the border is a mess. There is a problem. And even if Nancy Pelosi, the drunk bum Nancy, I mean, you'd figure that she knows it. They're just trying to play a game. See, here's the thing with them. All right. It has nothing to do with the border. With the Democrats. It has nothing to do with the border. It has nothing to do with, anything other than stopping Donald Trump. And the reason they want to stop Donald Trump is because he's going to take them down.
Well, these Democrats, I keep looking at what they're doing on the state level here in Oregon and on the national level, and I think to myself, these guys are the worst tacticians I've ever seen in politics. They're trying to lose.
Yeah. They said that Donald Trump wants to be impeached in the House. I don't think that's a factual statement. And that's the other thing, too, with impeachment is the Constitution lays it out very clearly that you have to have a crime. They have no crime, so they can't continue with impeachment. But I've played devil's advocate with this and said, okay, let's say they go ahead and they draft up articles of impeachment. They send it over to the Senate. The Senate's going to quash it anyway. So they still lose. They still lose.
Right, but then they make the Republicans look like obstructionists, or they're protecting their president, blah blah blah, and they polarize things even more.
Which is fine. The whole thing is just all it is it's a shouting match to create a diversion. That's all it is. Anytime the government gets loud like that, they're trying to hide something from the public.
Well, they're also engaging in, I agree with you on that, but they're also engaging in voter suppression, which is, all this negative stuff is designed to get people disgusted so they don't pay attention and they don't vote the next cycle, but also so that they can get away with all the other crap that they're doing behind the scenes.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, man. Good point.
Yeah, because I am what I would call a libertarian light.
Yeah.
There is certain things that I'm really iffy on about the Libertarian Party. That their open borders policy is horrendous in my opinion. It will never slide in this country because without borders, you have no country. And a lot of libertarians, they claim to be patriots, but how can you be a patriot without having a country? That's kind of, really, really weird for me. But so, the only thing I think that a government has only 3, mandates: protect our country from enemies, foreign and domestic, like the military does. Make sure, that pursuit of life and happiness, is in effect as well. Without those, our country isn't really a good country.
That's right.
And a lot of people, they're kind of iffy on this subject, but I think that we should have at least a semi-militarized border, because I am looking at it's an invasion almost, in terms of, but instead of armed soldiers, you are possible government agents.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily understand how libertarians can. I tend to have libertarian leanings, but I don't understand how they can reconcile the idea of supporting the Constitution and sovereignty, but also then being completely open borders. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense. That's the only. That's why I'm libertarian light. I'm not.
Right. Conservatarian.
Yeah, I'm borderline both. I took a lot of political tests, and I am like libertarian conservative on average.
Yeah.
I also have a really weird thing for pro-life. I'm pro-life, but I don't think the government should, at its power, ban abortion. That's my only thing. I think that we should be able to convince women through morale or for some other reason to not actually have an abortion. But I don't think it should be outlawed just because I'm at that point. I don't think that women should have an abortion, moral grounds, especially past the second trimester. And that's a really weird thing for the conservative movement because a lot of people are diehard either way.
Yeah, and I'm conflicted on that myself actually because it's not just a clump of cells, right? It's actually a life, so it is murder, right? Yeah. So I mean, you can't escape that conclusion biologically.
Yeah, it's 100% a life. It's just that I don't want the government to have that much control over another person. There's a lot of constitutional issues with that. It's a lot of people that are constitutional lawyers are saying it has to do almost like slavery, almost to the state. And
how do you mean?
I mean that you don't have full control of your body. That's kind of like it's a very iffy thing. I 100% agree that it is a baby. There is no it's not a clump of cells,
Right. Biologically, you've given up that sovereignty because you've chosen to engage in the act that then creates another life. So, yeah. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. It's just that I don't think the government should be able to mandate that. Just because I also don't think they should be able to mandate weed, for example. I don't smoke weed. I don't drink alcohol. We saw how bad it was in the Prohibition, back, in the 60s and whatever. It was horrendous. Except nowadays it's cartels instead of gangsters.
Right. Here in Oregon, we have I think it's the only law remaining on the books where you actually have to get a prescription to buy Sudafed. And it was designed as a measure to control the meth epidemic, which is ridiculous. I can't buy. I'm a common criminal if I try to buy Sudafed over the counter, right? So, what they've found is that the meth epidemic has only gotten worse since they passed that law, and it all comes from Mexico now.
Yeah, it's actually the same thing where they like up here in Wisconsin, where it's heavily regulated for weed. A lot of it comes from California now.
And I'm sure a lot of it comes from Oregon too. We legalized a couple of years ago, and we have a 6-year surplus. We couldn't smoke all the weed we've grown.
And again, I don't smoke weed. I don't drink alcohol. I just don't think the government should have any control of someone's body. And that's why I'm kind of iffy on the whole pro-choice thing. Like, again, I don't think that the government should ban abortion, but I think that we should be able to, without the force of a gun through the government, force a woman to not have that ability. I think that we should be able to have a moral case.
The government's role in the Constitution is very clear: to protect and serve the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. It is not the role to get engaged in our lives and tell us daily what we can and cannot do. I mean, we have to have some laws, otherwise it becomes.
Yeah, you can't murder people.
Yeah. Right. But I mean,
it's not daily that I want to murder somebody, but
the role of the government is not to give bailouts to automotive industries and all this other crap.
No. That's if it's not socialism, it's borderline socialism. In my opinion, like when that happened, I was only 12. I had no clue was going on. It's only now that I look back at that, and that was the worst thing that our government could have done.
I don't know. Cash for clunkers was, I think, dumber.
Oh yeah. That was a bad thing in California too.
Yeah, they actually when you turned in your old car for a newer car for the money for the Cash for Clunkers program,
Right.
They actually neutralized all of their engines so that they couldn't be resold on the secondary market. So they just turned them into giant paperweights and threw them in a landfill, which actually really hurts poor people, people of limited income, because they rely on having inexpensive transportation, with all the troubles that comes with it. But it just completely eliminated that market. So everything that they do, once again, goes back to it all hurts the poor.
Well, I actually was doing a lot of research on that, and a lot of the bus companies actually push that through. Because they're going to force people, also a lot of cab companies too. So it's trying to force people that on lower income that can't afford a newish vehicle.
Right.
They're going to have to use, quote unquote, a public transportation to get around.
Government is highly efficient, ladies and gentlemen. Yep. Said no one ever.
Like the government really is pretty much anything it does, except maybe the internet, has not done anything productive.
They can't even balance. They can't even put forth a balanced budget, man.
No.
Yeah, what's it been, like 12 years?
It's almost been 15, hasn't it?
Something like that.
Yeah, and we're already like $80 trillion in debt if you count unfunded liabilities.
I think it's more than that. I've heard of figures as high as 200 trillion, but I mean, it's a lot.
I think that's actually, like, I know what you're talking about. That also it counts local and state debt as well.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Look at Oregon again. The public employee retirement system. I was just listening to another podcast with a guy who ran for governor under the Republican nomination, Alan Alley, and he was pointing out that over the next 30 years, the cash flow liability for PERS, the Public Employee Retirement System, is $235 billion.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's just for a state of 4 million people.
Wow.
Yeah, our annual budget, all funds budget, is like 72, or our biennial budget is $72 billion.
That's going to be the downfall of America, my friend.
Absolutely. This bubble is coming due soon, and there are lots of states that are in this predicament, and they refuse to face the problem head on.
Well, see, that's the other thing with China. They could dump our debt too.
Yeah, but what are they going to do? Come get it? I mean,
yeah, true. Yeah, come get it. Come on.
Yeah, Malone Lobby. But no, I mean, but if they stop buying our bonds, that would be a real problem.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and see. I think this William Barr thing is going to crack open here real soon. I think within a couple of weeks you're going to start seeing stuff roll, man.
I certainly hope so. I mean, there's so much criminality from the Obama administration that needs to be prosecuted, and I've been very impatient waiting for that to happen.
Well, one thing leads to another. I mean, you start looking at the collusion thing, and then you find that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and all of them were involved, because this is all going back to when he was in office. So, you're going to find his involvement, and then that's just going to open up another one, which opens up another. And before you know it, man, I think you're going to see a crime spree that we have not seen in this country since inception.
I'm just curious. Thinking about it, was anyone prosecuted for that Too Fast, Too Furious scandal?
No.
That's stupid.
Yeah, who was the border guard that was killed by one of those guns? I forget his name now. It's been there you go. I wish his family had sued. Just for the discovery phase of everything.
They tried to, but they were blocked.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome aboard.
Good evening. How are you doing? Can y'all hear me okay?
We can hear you loud and clear. Thank you for joining.
It's kind of like when Martin Luther King's family sued the government, and they won, and they found out during the discovery phase that the FBI did kill him.
So, just to Edwin, just to give you an idea of what we're talking about here, we're just kind of talking about a mishmash of stuff. Talking about the collusion and how that's probably going to break open here before too long, and Iran, and just talking about a mishmash of stuff here tonight. So you're welcome to jump on board with anything you got.
Man, I'm so sorry. My son just woke up, started hollering. I'm gonna have to jump out. I apologize.
No worries, man.
No problem.
All right, thanks.
We'll catch you next time.
Yeah.
I think it's still on still.
Yeah, we're gonna be able to see his son.
Yeah, but no one was prosecuted. Even the smallest person at the ATF, no one was arrested for killing all those innocent people, down the south.
Well, and that's what government does, right? It sets up two sets of rules, one for everybody else and one for themselves, and they block themselves from being liable for lawsuits in civil court. And so it's unconscionable that they do that, and we as citizens can't fight back against our own government.
No, right.
And
that's why they want to. That's why they want to get rid of the Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment has nothing to do with gun control or any of that. The Second Amendment is a principle that you have the right to defend yourself against a tyrannical government.
Correct.
Yep, and also the militia clause too.
And see, they know that they don't want to give you the right to be able to defend yourself. They want you to. See, what's the first thing Hitler did, man?
He came into power.
The people. He disarmed the people.
But
well, and that's what the British did too. That was first spelled out in the Declaration of Independence, even before the Second Amendment.
Yeah. So I mean that's our founding fathers were genius, man. They were absolutely genius when they framed this country, and they would turn over in their graves if they saw what we have done to the republic, because the republic that they created and the republic that we are today are two totally different things.
Oh, yeah, it's not even close.
Yeah. So are we going to talk about Trump sending illegals to sanctuary cities yet?
We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. I think that was absolutely a genius play on his part.
That is troll on a massive level.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and living in Portland, Oregon, man, I'm stocking up, if you know what I mean.
I think that was absolutely genius for him to do that.
Yeah, I mean, legally, since they're not citizens, he can do that, right?
Well, here's the thing. They're here. He can put them wherever the hell he wants to put them.
Especially since there's another judge that blocked his border being built again in the border wall.
Yeah, well, that ain't going to last long.
No, it's not. But it's really funny to watch them say, oh, we don't like the consequences of our own stance on the issue. You can't send all those illegal aliens to our city. Well, wait a minute. That's exactly what you want, isn't it?
Spartacus said it was unconstitutional and it was against the law. Spartacus is also the one that said it's unconstitutional for us not to accept them here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
what the hell, dude?
It's only constitutional to send them to red states.
Yeah. Why isn't Trump giving them tents and busing them to people's houses?
Well, here's the thing, man. It's going to come to a head here pretty quick, because wasn't it? I think it was Ted Cruz. Somebody introduced legislation that in order to, they're going to change that. So they have to go, instead of coming to the U.S. border to seek asylum, they have to go to the embassy in their country of residence,
Yep.
and then they wait there until we get to them.
I thought legally they had to anyway.
No, they can come to the border and claim
Okay.
asylum.
Okay.
Right, but if we don't have the facilities to handle all those asylum seekers, then, we have every right to refuse service, We reserve the right to refuse service to anybody, supposedly.
I agree. Unless you're a Democrat.
Right.
Yeah. It's going to be really, really, I said this, I think, 4 episodes ago when this topic first was brought into focus for us. It's going to be a short-term gain politically for Trump, probably long-term bad for us as a country.
Yeah.
Because you literally are adding more votes to these states that will not get rid of, any illegal immigrants.
Right.
It's going to be really bad in about 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny about that is here in Sanctuary State, Oregon, we have this motor voter law where everybody who applies for state ID or a driver's license, I don't know about driver's cards. We still haven't approved that yet, although they're trying to. But everybody who applies for a state ID is automatically registered to vote as a non-affiliated voter. And what we're seeing just in the last month or two, they tried to ram through this forced vaccinations bill.
Right.
And this thing fired up so many people that for whatever reason, they come from countries where it's an oppressive government, so they don't participate, or they are maybe afraid of their immigration status, so they don't get involved and they don't want to fill out forms, that kind of stuff. So all of a sudden, these people are so fired up about this immigrations law or this immunizations law that they're saying, let's get involved. We have to get involved. And so I think we have a real opportunity politically to reach out to these non-affiliated voters and say, hey, did you know your government's trying to do this and that to you? And if we on the right are the first people to touch these voters and to say, to get them activated, then we've got an advantage over the other side.
Right.
It kind of reminds me during the 60s when a lot of Irish and Italians came back, over after World War II, that they were immediately, after they got off the ships, were given pamphlets for voting. Because back then, you didn't need to be a U.S. citizen to vote.
That would have been in the 40s and 50s, but yeah.
Yep.
I'm popping in and out here, guys.
Huh?
I am popping in and out. Something's wrong.
Oh, you're fine now.
What's that?
Oh, you're fine now.
Yeah, I just completely popped out. In fact, now my computer is like, I don't know, it's freaking out.
Yeah, you're fine now, at least on my side.
Wow.
Hey, this is Win. I can hear you fine too.
Hey, man, welcome aboard,
Hey,
buddy.
you're back.
Yeah, sorry. Little fella passed out this afternoon on the way home from a birthday party, and he just decided he would go up. So
Very cool. Welcome back aboard, man.
thank you very much.
Yeah, so it's open floor, man. Whatever you want to talk about, brother.
Yeah, you were talking about the whole collusion BS story that they've been trying to come out with, and yeah, I think y'all probably already said something about. I think Trump's going to declassify the whole mess. So
He did.
Did he? Did he already
Yep.
do it? Yeah. So
He's
it's
already
gonna
done it.
be-
He's already sent out a memo to all the department heads to basically give Attorney General William Barr whatever he wants.
Yeah, it's gonna. I think the Dems are gonna lose their mind even
So
more.
if you go to the store,
Lose?
there's a thing that you can buy. It's round and it's got like 3 blades on it, and it gets to spinning real fast. and it pushes air through the room. But if you go into the bathroom and take a doo-doo, you can throw it in that and it splatters everywhere. And that's what's about to happen in our country. Doo-doo is going to fly, folks.
Yeah.
He's going to hit the rotating oscillator.
The rotating feces oscillator.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm trying to eat. They're doing this. This is not. Yeah, but yeah, because we're celebrating the holiday early because I'm working during the holiday. Yeah, but yeah, like it's gonna be very interesting. I hope it doesn't turn out to be like Hillary's emails and nothing happens, which that's probably how it's gonna happen. But you never know.
I don't know, man. I think I think we're in a different time right now in America. A lot of people say, well, nothing's going to happen because, Hillary's Hillary and Brock's Brock and all this other stuff. But that's one thing. But we all know that Hillary's a criminal. It's just that nobody's ever been willing to prosecute. And I think we have a new sheriff in town that's willing to prosecute those who are criminals.
Well, let's explore that. Why have they not been willing to prosecute?
Because they've had control for the last.
Nah, I mean, we've had the Congress, we've had the Senate,
Yeah, but remember, it's been a bunch of rhinos in there too.
Fair enough.
That and Hillary has dirt on everybody.
Well, but here's the thing. Okay, so I have people, I get into it with people. Well, Trump said he was going to build a wall, but he hasn't built it yet. Well, wait a minute. He's been trying. He's done within the confines of the law what he can do. And as soon as he created a state of emergency, the Democrats pulled it into the court, and it's been tied up there ever since. Well, he said he was going to investigate Hillary Clinton. Well, he's starting now. I mean, you're only one guy, and when he was talking about, if you go back to the last time that Nancy and Chuckles were in the White House talking to Trump, and they were talking about building the wall and shutting the government down and all this other stuff. And Trump said then that they didn't have the votes in the Senate. They had them in the House. That was just before the election that the Republicans took over the House. They had the votes in the House, but they did not have them in the Senate. And he knew that. So you got to understand that you've got a bunch of rhinos that are never Trumpers, and they're fighting them all the way tooth and nail, all the way every time. They claim to be Republicans, but they sure don't act like it.
I mean, Paul Ryan screwed him.
Yeah, Paul Ryan flubbed the whole thing.
Biggest disappointment in my active involvement in politics. I thought Paul Ryan was a free market hero, and he turned out to be just as big a swamp creature as John Boehner.
You had Boehner, you had Jeff Flake, John McCain. All these they run on the Republican ticket. I mean, look at Biden right now. Biden is running to the center.
Go ahead, sorry.
That's okay. Let's look at that. Let's look at because I talked about this in my recent program. Let's look at that. You have the top two Democrats are Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. Those are your top two. The rest of them, they're not even pulling 2 or 3%. Okay, they're nothing burgers. And
watch out for Jay Inslee.
Well, we'll have.
I'm obviously kidding.
Yeah, but the point I'm getting at is the top two contenders in this whole thing can't even draw crowds of 200 or 300 people.
You gotta watch out because a war might scalp you.
I don't know, man. All this weird stuff's happening on my computer right now. So if I pop out of here, I'll try to pop back in. Yeah. But it's just
on my screen, you're perfectly fine. It might be your end, but yeah.
Here.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think they're going to allow Bernie to win.
No, Bernie's going to get screwed just like he did with Hillary.
Yeah,
it's going to be Joe Biden. Yeah. Joe Biden's going to be the horse.
Yeah, and he's gonna lose because the whole there's gonna be there's about 50% of Democrat population that won't vote at all if Bernie is gone.
Right.
It's just it's a very, very split and splintered party right now. A lot of people, they don't like Joe because the whole Me Too thing. That's
Right.
a huge issue for them.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's Joe's got he's got skeletons. I mean, and especially with all the video stuff, people are putting together the creepy Joe evidence out
Yeah,
there.
but
but
Dems don't care.
well, they don't care because we already know about it. He ran for president 30 years ago or 30 years ago, and he was forced to be kicked out of that. But now, I mean, there's no new dirt. We just know it's all the same dirt, and people are kind of used to it.
Right. Well, the thing is, Bernie's going to get squashed again. He's going to get screwed, just like they screwed him with Hillary, and it's going to be Joe Biden.
There's a pretty sight.
Yeah, well, Joe Biden. Here's the thing, Joe Biden. It's okay. Everything's okay because it's Uncle Joe. He's got notoriety, But here's the thing: Trump's going to squash him like a grape, you guys.
Well, it's not just Biden. It's all the Democrats. Trump's basically running against AOC and Ilhan Omar, and
right.
And so I think he's going to actually win the the popular vote as well as the electoral college this time.
Well, that's the thing you got to watch out for too, guys. That's the distraction that I think they're covering up with all this nonsense with this collusion and shit. Is I believe because they're trying to get rid of the electoral college, okay, and that, my friends, is the pure genius of our entire republic. Is the electoral college. Our founding fathers were genius when they put that in there because they knew. They were smart enough to know. They looked into the future. They were way ahead of their time. And they put in the electoral college because all it takes is a state like California and New York. That's it. If we go by popular vote based on those two countries alone, as far as population is concerned, that's all you'll ever see. None of the other states will ever matter in another election.
They're states, not countries, although, they act like their own countries.
Right.
Yeah. Like, it's going to be really interesting. That's what you would look at the beginnings of some form of civil war.
Right.
Is because up here in Wisconsin, we have very little population, excluding Madison and all those other, horrible, cities.
Milwaukee.
Oh, Milwaukee's horrible. You're gonna get shot like instantly there. I need to pause my mic because my dogs are being loud again for some reason. Probably someone's here driving a package or something.
Wynn, you got anything you want to add?
Well, I mean, it's just like I just saw something today, and I'm not exactly sure how accurate it is, but it was a picture and it showed, I think it was LA, and LA County has enough population would basically outvote 3/4 of the entire country.
Exactly.
And so again, like you say, that was the genius of the Electoral College, was because it gave states like North Carolina, which they're gaining a population, but they're still not as populous as many of the other states.
Right.
And it gives us the ability to have a vote where,
right.
I mean, and it gets very misconstrued because a lot of people are like, well, you don't really vote for president because the delegates vote for the
You're not
president.
supposed to anyway.
Right.
Well, exactly. We don't have direct election for the president. Basically, we vote as citizens for the president, kind of like, hey, to kind of sway the delegates. Hey, this is the way we want you to vote.
Our representatives, we're supposed to go and vote, and then our representatives are supposed to listen to what we say as the majority, and then put their vote toward that candidate.
And though the thing is that this the way that some of these states are trying to do it with doing the popular vote and throwing all the votes towards that candidate, that could backfire on them too, because if
Right now with Trump, it could, yeah.
Well, that's why I say, like I'm here in Oregon, and if the National Popular Vote Compact passes, I think Trump's going to win the popular vote, so all those states would actually have to cast their votes for Trump, which would, in Oregon, can you imagine the amount of heads exploding?
Wouldn't that piss off their tissy, man?
Yeah.
We got rid of the Electoral College because we knew that was what was going to get us to win, and the son of a bitch still won.
Yeah. A funny thing is that I know Nevada, they recently passed it.
Yeah, and, just this week.
Yeah, as far as I know, they're the only reddish state that has passed it so far.
It's funny because Arizona used to be a solid red state, man, and now we're finding ourselves questioning whether we're red or blue. That's scary.
Yeah, it's kind of like up here in Wisconsin. It used to be a blue state, and now counties that have never voted for a Republican since the 80s are now voting Republican. And one issue is that a lot of young adults, they leave Wisconsin. So a lot of people that are your guys' age are up here now. Because a lot of people, they go down to Illinois. Hey,
you calling us old?
You're hella old.
That's my mini kukri, I like to call it. It's my cold steel. This is a Spartan. It's BD1 alloy steel.
Huge.
This thing is bad to the bone, brother. It's too big for an everyday carry, but if you want to chop a freaking tree down, this'll do it, man. If you ever find yourself needing to get into a steel ammo box, this guy will cut its way in.
I mean, I think nothing fancy. He carries a 10-inch folding knife.
Yeah.
On him all the time.
Wow.
So I mean, you can do it, but why?
Well, it's the same reason we have the Second Amendment, because of F you, that's why.
That's exactly right, my friends.
Yeah.
The Second Amendment, like I said, was a principle that we have the right to defend ourselves against a tyrannical government. It has nothing to do with gun control or any of that. And by the way, if you read the wording, it says arms, plural, meaning more than one, and it doesn't say a 22 or it doesn't say a 350. It says arms. That means whatever I want, however many of them that I feel I need in order to defend myself against a tyrannical government.
Right. The language is not questionable except if you're trying to undermine it.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely very clear. In fact, every sentence in the Constitution is clear. Mark and I have talked about that. The Constitution is a simple document. It's very easy to read. It's put forth it's written in 6th grade English, man.
Well, that's way beyond most Americans these days, though.
And it's, it's not like it's a big 4,000 chapter book or something like. I mean, it's a thin little document that outlines everything, man.
It's like 3,000 words or something like that.
Yeah, it's small. There's nothing to it. And there's not, I mean, it's not like you've got hard words in there that Ocasio-Cortez, well, she can't understand Go, so.
Hey, man, she's a lot of things, but let's at least give her some credit. She's not unintelligent. She's just badly misinformed.
Yeah. She
well,
thinks
here's
the
the
cauliflower, is a colonizing plant.
The college scandal?
No, the cauliflower.
No, the college scandal. She's got degrees and all this. Remember, we just found out that people were paying for college scandal degrees.
Oh, yeah. That's where you learn that cauliflower is a colonial plant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually concerned for this country in 20 years. There's a lot of polling going on, and it's like 63% of the population that are 25 or younger believe we should get rid of the First Amendment.
I am afraid for this country in 6 years, my friend.
Yeah, it's just gonna be it's gonna be horrendous.
Because remember, Trump's done in 6 years.
Yeah.
So we got to find another horse to ride, guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people are saying this is the last Republican president. I hope not. That'd be
if they get rid of the Electoral College, it will be.
Yeah. And that's when you will start seeing civil uprisings on both sides.
That's when I'm bailing, folks.
Yeah.
Well, I think you'll see kind of a balkanization. If it goes that far, I think you'll see the country, the rural areas will. I mean, it's going to be rural against cities, basically, what you're going to see. But, the idiots in the cities don't really realize that all their food comes from the country.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
it really
so they're going to come in and armed and try to commandeer all the stuff that they parasite off of right now.
Win, keep going with that thought, because I want you to hold that thought, because it's a great point that you made just now.
Well, I mean, because if it comes down to it, I mean, how hard is it to blockade a lot of these cities? I mean, you get the people out in the country pissed off enough, the ones that are the producers, the makers, the ones that are feeding these morons up there, the ones that are living out in the country that are running the water treatment plant, that are feeding water into these places, that are running the electrical plants, that are, basically taking care of these snowflakes. And without us, they don't have anything.
See, it's interesting. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's interesting that you make that point, because Mark and I got to talking about this versus the Civil War. I hate to say it, but I think the country is heading for another Civil War. But here's the difference between the Civil War now and the Civil War that we had before. The Civil War that we had before, you knew who your enemy was.
Yeah.
Right.
You had the North versus the South. Now, you don't know who your enemy is.
Yeah, it's
very good point.
It's going to be multifaceted. You're going to have ununiformed soldiers. You're going to have suicide drones that are on RC cars blowing up, political rallies. It's going to be horrendous. Your average firefight's going to involve a lot of drones that are either using for spying or using for, again, suicide bombs.
Look, man, your next door neighbor, brother. You don't even know what side your next door neighbor's on anymore.
Neighbor versus neighbor. Now, are y'all familiar with the gentleman by the name of Sam Culper?
I've heard of him.
He runs a website called Forward Observer, and he's a former intelligence guy from the military, and he started kind of creating a network of, and I've got his book right here, a network of basically how to create it's called SHTF intelligence. And this is a guide on basically how to build a plan and kind of look at your neighborhood and see who's around. I mean, there's a lot of open source intelligence.
Yeah.
And he deals a lot in that. If you're not real familiar with him, I'd highly recommend taking a look at some of his stuff.
Yeah.
And he puts out a podcast. He puts out a daily brief, and he's pretty spot on with a lot of his information.
Yeah.
But I mean, going to the open source intelligence, you can go like in North Carolina. the voting, the voter registration, all that stuff is public information.
Yeah.
So if you can go into, I kind of I've freaked out a few people because if I find out somebody's name, people that write op-eds in the newspaper and put their real name up, that's about the dumbest thing you could. You know, they say so and so from this town. So I go, the first thing I do is I go to the county GIS.
Yeah.
Pull county GIS and do a record search for that person's name.
Yeah.
Pops up. There it is. I know where they live.
Yeah.
Then I can normally they're being a jerk, so that means they're probably a Democrat. But I can go into the the state voter registration. I can look at basically how they voted in the primary, whether they got a Democrat ballot or a Republican ballot. I mean, there's so much information out there. So people on our side need to really look at that kind of stuff. And
I have access to all of that stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's open records. I mean, I'm a ham radio operator, and that stuff is all out there. I mean,
I did ham radio back in the 80s, man.
Well, I'm one of those no code hams that they like the old guys like to bitch about.
Yeah.
So,
I remember, God, I was doing CB radios and ham radio and all that stuff. And then they just got stupid with it, and I walked away from it.
Well, I'm going to tell you, that's another thing I'm deeply involved in is there's an organization called AMRON, which stands for the American Redoubt Radio Network, and Glenn Tate, Shelby Gallagher, they've talked about it a couple times. John Jacob Schmidt over there, he's built a really robust network of people that nationwide for grid down communication. So anyway, that's kind of we're veering off into all kinds of different.
Well, that's okay. I mean, we've only got a couple of minutes left. We're getting ready to come around the top of the hour again.
Yeah.
So anybody?
We could go longer, that. I don't mind going a little bit longer.
Yeah, well, the problem is I've still got to strip the audio from this because I've got to put it into my video editor, strip the audio, get it off to John. So it's going to be a couple hours for me. So
yeah. Well, one last topic that I want to bring up is that I think the people that want a civil war on both sides are looking at it a very short-handed approach.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of research on foreign conflicts just because I'm a prepper and it makes a lot of sense. It's not the soldiers that are affected the most during a modern conflict. It's the civilians. It's the graduates, like the female doctors that have to sell their bodies for food for kids. It's horrendous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and again, going back like you're just talking about, you'll find I'll reference a lot of books, a lot of the dystopian books, because I've probably listened to about 90% of them through audiobooks. I've gone through a lot of those theories a couple times, but like you say, Shelby Gallagher talked about that in women and children are going to be really affected. It's happening. You see it in Venezuela. They're selling themselves for a morsel of food just so their kids don't starve to death.
I know, man.
Yeah, and I drive Uber and Lyft on the side here, and I had a passenger a few months ago who was Venezuelan, and he was telling me that doctors are going to the Dominican Republic to be able to open up like taco stands because they can't work in Venezuela anymore. They're refugees and they just have to start over. When the Dominican Republic is accepting people as refugees because things aren't quite as bad there, that's when things are really bad.
Yeah.
Hey, Edwin, let me know. I'll let you know when I have my beta version of my book ready, and I'll send it to you.
That'd be great, man. Yeah. That'd be
All
awesome.
right, listen, guys, we're at the top of the hour. I'm going to get ready to shut off the recording. I mean, the call can continue, but I'm
Yeah.
going to shut off the recording so I can get it edited and sent off to John. But thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks
Yep.
for jumping on, everybody. And we will be back again next week.